Story 1. The Soldier Who Refused to Die. The Night at Castle Itter. The gunfire starts before sunrise. Not in the distance, not faint, right outside the walls. Inside a medieval Austrian castle. Stone walls, iron gates, surrounded by mountains. American soldiers are loading their last magazines. But they're not alone. Standing beside them are French politicians, a tennis champion, a former prime minister, and a handful of German soldiers who have just switched sides. This isn't supposed to happen. Because it's May 1945. The war is basically over. But for the people inside Castle Itter, the most dangerous battle hasn't even started yet. Days earlier, the prisoners knew something was wrong. The Nazi guards vanished. No orders, no warning, just gone. The gates were still locked, but suddenly, there was no one left to keep them in. Inside were high-profile prisoners the Nazis didn't dare execute, but couldn't afford to release. Men like former French Prime Minister Édouard Daladier and General Maurice Gamelin. They had been bargaining chips. Now they were targets, because the SS was still out there, and they were furious. As Germany collapsed, rogue SS units were hunting down anyone they considered a traitor. And that castle, it was full of them. So the prisoners made a decision that sounds insane. They sent one of their own, out into the mountains, past enemy lines, to find help. He didn't even know if anyone was left to help. Meanwhile, an American tank commander named Captain Jack Lee is rolling through Austria. War's almost over. Most units are standing down. But then he hears something bizarre. A report of a castle full of VIP prisoners, possibly about to be massacred. It sounds like a trap, or a rumor, or both. But Lee doesn't hesitate. He grabs a handful of soldiers, barely a dozen men, and heads straight for the castle. No backup, no clear intel, just a gut feeling that if they don't go now, it'll be too late. When they arrive, things get even stranger. Because they're not the only ones there to help. Waiting outside the castle is a German officer, in full uniform, armed, and asking to fight with the Americans. His name is Major Josef Gangl, and he's done with the Nazis. He knows the SS is coming. He knows the prisoners will be executed. And he's willing to die to stop it. So now you have something almost impossible. American soldiers, German soldiers, and French prisoners, all preparing to fight together, inside a castle against the SS. They don't have much. One tank nicknamed Besotten Jenny, a few machine guns, limited ammo, and a handful of men who weren't trained to fight at all. One of them, Jean Borotra, a world-famous tennis champion. And when he realizes they're surrounded, he doesn't panic, he volunteers to jump over the castle walls, sprint through enemy territory, and find reinforcements. Everyone knows it's basically suicide. He goes anyway. Then the attack begins. Hundreds of SS troops flood the hillside. Machine guns open up. The tank fires until it's nearly destroyed. Bullets tear through the courtyard and inside the castle. The prisoners pick up rifles. Men who were never meant to fight, now fighting for their lives. Major Gangl moves through the chaos, directing fire, keeping everyone together. Captain Lee is hit. Ammo is running low. The tank is knocked out. And the SS starts pushing closer. Room by room, wall by wall. At one point, a sniper locks onto one of the prisoners, a former French leader, exposed in the courtyard, frozen. And in that moment, Major Gangl makes a decision. He steps directly into the line of fire, takes the bullet, and dies protecting a man he barely knew. A German officer giving his life to save a prisoner of the regime he once served. Inside the castle, things are collapsing. No ammo, no reinforcements, no way out. They are minutes away from being overrun, and then gunfire from the distance. Different gunfire, American gunfire, Jean Barotra made it, against every odd. He found US reinforcements, and now they're storming the hill. The SS, caught off guard, begin to break. Some flee, some surrender, some fight to the end. But it's over, against everything that should have happened. They survive. This battle becomes one of the strangest in history, because it's the only known time in World War II where American and German soldiers fought side by side against the SS inside a castle in the final days of the war. And almost no one talks about it. But the people who were there never forgot, because for one night, enemies became allies, prisoners became soldiers, and a war that was ending still found a way to demand everything. Story 2. The Ship of the Dead, the final horror of the World War II. The planes come out of nowhere. No warning, no signal. Just the sudden scream of engines ripping through the sky. And below them, on the freezing waters of the Baltic Sea, a massive white ship is trying to outrun death. On board, not soldiers, not armed convoys, but thousands of people, packed so tightly they can barely move, men, women, children. And in the lower decks, prisoners who should have been freed. It's May 3rd, 1945. The war is ending, Berlin is falling, Hitler is already dead. But out here, off the coast of Germany, none of that matters, because someone made a decision so reckless, so blind, that it would turn this ship into a floating coffin. The ship is called the Cap Arcona, once a luxury ocean liner, now a nightmare. The Nazis had loaded it with thousands of concentration camp prisoners from Neuengamme, but they didn't tell anyone why. No Red Cross markings, no prisoner lists, no communication, just a silent ship. Drifting in open water. Below deck, the air is thick. People are crammed into cargo holds with almost no food, no medical care, barely any light. Some are too weak to stand. Others already dead, left where they fell. No one knows where they're going. Some whisper hope. Maybe transport, maybe release, maybe the war is finally over. But then the engines slow. The ship stops, and panic starts to spread, because something isn't right. High above them, British RAF pilots are scanning the sea. They've been given a mission: destroy any ships that might be carrying escaping Nazi SS officers. No survivors, no chances, no mistakes, and then they see it. A large ship. No clear markings, no surrender signals. Just sitting there, suspicious, silent. They don't know what's inside. They're not told to ask, they're told to strike. The first rockets hit the deck like thunder. Explosions tear through the upper levels. Fire erupts instantly. Fuel ignites. Smoke pours into the sky. Inside the ship, chaos. People screaming, stampeding towards stairwells, clawing at locked doors. Desperate for air, desperate for escape. But many of the exits are sealed. Locked, guarded. Because the SS officers on board, they're not trying to save anyone. They're trying to save themselves. Some prisoners manage to break through. They reach the deck. And what they see is worse. The ship is burning from end to end, flames ripping through wood and steel. People jumping overboard into ice-cold water, others collapsing where they stand. Then the second wave hits. More rockets, more fire. The deck splits. The ship begins to tilt. In the water, it's even worse. The Baltic Sea is freezing. People who jump in don't last long. Minutes at best. Some try to cling to debris, others try to swim, most just disappear. And then it gets darker. Because in the water, some survivors are being shot. SS guards on smaller boats, firing into the sea. At unarmed prisoners, at people begging for help. Anyone trying to climb aboard, anyone trying to live. Back in the sky, the pilots circle. They see people, hundreds of them, but from that height. In the smoke, in the chaos. They can't tell who's who, enemy, ally, prisoner, they don't know. And by then, it's too late. The Cap Arcona rolls onto its side. Fire consumes everything, and then it's gone. Over 7,000 people die in a single attack in the final days of the war. Most of them prisoners who were just days away from freedom. The truth doesn't come out immediately. At first, it's just another sinking, another strike, another piece of the war. But when the full story emerges, it hits different, because this wasn't a battle. It wasn't a last stand. It wasn't even a mistake made in chaos. It was a chain of decisions, bad intel, silence, secrecy, and complete disregard for the lives trapped inside that ship. A luxury liner turned prison, a prison turned target, a target turned mass grave. And the people on board? They survived camps, starvation, forced labor, beatings, execution, everything the war could throw at them, only to die just days before it ended. History barely talks about it. No big movies, no major memorials, just cold water, burned wreckage, and thousands of names most people will never hear, because sometimes the darkest moments of war don't happen at the beginning, or the middle,